Welcome everybody to episode 10 of Digital Downtime. It's your boy Gilly here, as always, bringing you weekly news, updates, opinions, whatever the heck I want in the gaming world. Before we start, my call to action, as always, please make sure to spread the news of the podcast to anyone and everyone. Word of mouth helps tremendously. Please leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. This week we'll be talking about the delay on Switch 2 reviews, the impact of GTA 6 on 2025, which we touched on last week, but now we got some numbers. Plus, we'll also be talking about some more miscellaneous headlines, including record results for Capcom, Sumo executives leaving, Ubisoft delaying some games, and Sony considering a PS5 price rise, which I also predicted last week. Followed by all that, of course, we're going to have our weekly Have You Played This section, which I'll keep a surprise this time so you guys can be surprised later on. With that being said, we'll get things started right after this. So Nintendo has warned the press that there will be no Switch 2 consoles until launch. The press will not be receiving Nintendo 2 Switch consoles, not until right before it comes out. Again, this is coming from our wonderful people at the Game Business. So if you have not checked them out yet, make sure to check out thegamebusiness.com. Some media have been warned that they will not have their machine until launch day. Nintendo has told journalists that this is due to the requirement of a significant day one patch. It's really frustrating, said one editor. We will need to cover Switch 2 while also working across Summer Game Fest. How the hell are we supposed to do that? Another added, anyone who can get a hold of a console early from a dodgy retailer will have a head start in terms of coverage. I know this console will be sold out at launch, but what about the other games? Nintendo is holding some press preview events for Mario Kart World, which will give journalists and critics an extended play of the upcoming video game. But the reality of it is, though, there's going to be very few, if any, reviews of the Switch 2 or its games until the machine has come out. The situation, and no surprise, has stunned some of the third-party publishers planning Switch 2 launch titles. Key third-party launch games include Cyberpunk 2077 from CD Projekt Red, Split Fiction from EA and Hazelight, Hitman World of Assassination from IO Interactive, Street Fighter 6 from Capcom, and Sonic X Shadow Generations from Sega. One PR boss mentioned that they have something special for the launch of the Switch 2 for those that want something else in addition to Mario Kart. But the lack of independent critical validation is going to make it very hard for us. Maybe we would have been better off waiting a few weeks. Nintendo Switch 2 in general, to be honest, has had a really tricky PR ride since it was revealed in April. It's faced criticism around the apparent lack of innovation on the hardware and for the pricing of the console games and accessories. Some fans, including myself, are frustrated by the introduction of game key cards, which are physical games that don't contain any code and instead trigger a digital download. So it kind of renders that whole process pointless. Nevertheless, overall, though, previews have been pretty positive and pre-orders have sold out worldwide. So, other frustrated fans were proven wrong. Nintendo revealed themselves that 2.2 million people in Japan applied for Switch 2 pre-orders, which greatly surpasses the number of units available. In the latest financial results, Nintendo has announced it wants to ship 15 million Switch 2 units by the end of its financial year. It's similar to what the first Switch managed during the same time frame, and analysts feel Nintendo's being conservative with its expectations. Ampere Analysis Games bosses Pierre Harding Rolls said that he thinks that Nintendo's being a little bit too cautious. There are a lot of unknowns. The tariff situation is unknown. Nintendo makes a valid point about the higher price point affecting sales, but it seems like the right price, and I don't think it will put off people in the first year of adopting the platform. People who are into Nintendo, who love the product and are into the brand, they'll be willing to spend that amount. We see that from the pre-order numbers. Our forecast for people actually buying the console for this year is a little over 13 million, which is slightly ahead of the original Switch. He also added the argument is that you get all these active users, so you should be selling to a bigger audience, and that will hopefully be reflected in the uptake. We've been cautious in our forecast, and it looks like Nintendo has done the same. What do you guys think about Nintendo holding off until when the console's actually released to get in the hands of journalists? Now, I think it's kind of shitty because obviously you want some reviews and impressions coming in before the launch, but at the same time, as we're seeing by pre-order numbers, I don't think Nintendo enthusiasts slash fans really even give a shit. So they're just gonna buy the console regardless. Um, I wonder. I'm really curious about what is this significant day one packs they're rolling out. Why they can't pass this into the hardware prior to, so that journalists and reviewers can get hands on it before the actual release to public. Who knows? I guess we'll see. I never really considered how this one journalist is saying here that covering the Switch 2 while also working across Summer Game Fest will be challenging. I never really had that thought until, before I started recording this episode, which is an interesting thought as well because there's a Switch 2 coming on around that time, and maybe obviously these individuals thought, or these publications thought, that they'd get their hands on it before so they can start getting that coverage. And again, similar to how I was talking about GTA 6 last week, also the coverage of Switch 2 is very important to the health of many independent outlets. Definitely, obviously, more traffic, more clicks, more ad revenue, etc., etc. So the delay obviously going to hurt them in that way. And at the same time, they have to cover usually what is a busy time in video games is the summer. And you got the Summer Game Fest, and you got Xbox doing their conference, and usually PlayStation State of Play thrown in there, and this, that, and a lot of news coming out. And with the delay of GTA 6, that kind of leaves this window wide open for the rest of 2025 now, which I think will make this summer even bigger in terms of announcements and what to expect. So yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I don't think it's going to hurt them in sales, but I think it kind of puts journalists and publications kind of in a more trickier spot on how to cover Switch 2 and all the other gaming news that will be happening at that time. Obviously, also for some third-party publishers, as mentioned, it's a little bit difficult because they won't get their games reviewed. They won't get the coverage they need on the console because obviously a lot of people have already played Cyberpunk, or they've played Street Fighter 6, or they've played Hitman, but they are very curious to see how it runs on the Switch 2, how the Switch 2 holds up to the previous, original Switch, like the technical leaps and boundaries, or possible even limitations still, is what a lot of people are interested in, because we want to see how this game produces, how this game spits out games, right? Games that have been out for a while too. So we'll see. So the GTA 6 delay has indeed infected console sales, which we touched upon last week. And the exact number could be around 700K, which is coming from Ampere Analysis once more. A leading industry data firm has reduced its 2025 sales estimates for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series and X by 700,000 units following the delay of Grand Theft Auto 6. Ampere Analysis also has lowered its forecast for PlayStation Xbox game sales down by 21 million units. Overall, Ampere believes that the console market will miss out on $2.7 billion in revenue this year due to GTA 6 delay. Of course, much of this will simply move to 2026, as the game is now scheduled to launch on May 26, 2026. The drop is quite significant, however, though. You would expect people to spend on other things instead, but that kind of transfer will not be entirely. There will be a significant impact. Harding Rolls believes that the GTA 6 delay would be a boost to Nintendo Switch 2 this Christmas, which again is what we talked about on the last episode, that GTA 6's delay is all in favor of Nintendo to dominate for this year. In our consumer data, Switch is often seen as a second device for many owners of the PS5. The overlap is quite significant, They're in the same competitive sphere, even if the content is not exactly the same. Ampere's new report anticipates growth in the video game industry in 2025 of just 0.9%, but that will improve with a 2.2% increase in 2026. And the report, Ampere believes generational inflation plus hyper competition will result in slow growth compared to pre-2019. And the companies will continue to focus on efficiency, being selective with the games they sign, and profit margins. So I wanted to throw some numbers this week because, I figured this would be a huge impact. 700,000 units is a big impact. Console market missing out overall on $2.7 billion in revenue is quite an impact. And this is really an interesting insight on consumer behavior because someone like me who's a gamer, and a lot of other people are, thought that maybe, this will transfer out. Maybe gamers will spend it on other games or anything else to help continue growing the industry. But man, there's just some people that play GTA. They don't give a shit about anything else coming out. There's just some people that play COD every year or the 2Ks every year, you know what I mean? Which I'm kind of assuming is the same kind of people. That's not a knock. It's just a certain kind of gamer. So the consumer behavior impact and understanding here is pretty interesting to say the least, because that growth will now happen next year when it does release, not just maybe somewhat maintain or shift to other games in the industry. No. So I just thought that was key to highlight here. Some significant numbers, but 0.9% for this year, but it will improve to 2.2% next year. There's a slew of other news here captured by the game business, which I will cover here now. Not exactly super in-depth looks, but just a slew of highlights coming around the gaming world this past week or so. First off is Ubisoft. They've delayed a series of unannounced games in its latest financial results. The firm described these as some of its biggest productions, which kind of hints or indicates that the games may be in the Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and or Tom Clancy franchises. The firm says giving games extra time clearly had a benefit on the quality of Assassin's Creed Shadows and has taken inspiration from that decision to delay their next unannounced games. This comes after a Q2 or Q1, I believe. Q2 that was underwhelming for them. So, interesting to say the least. Capcom, on the other hand, has achieved its ambition of 10% annual growth in income for 10 consecutive years. So 10% annual growth in income for a decade. Crazy, right? Considering this company was once dying at one point in history. But they're doing it, in my opinion, simply just by releasing good games. The RE engine's obviously pushing a lot in terms of tactical capabilities. It's crazy what making some good games can do, eh? Again, this is boosted by the smash success of Monster Hunter Wilds for this year, which has now sold over 10 million units since its release in February, despite the technical difficulties on PC and whatever else. Still a smash hit. And like I said, they got Monster Hunter under their belt. They got Resident Evil, fighting games, a whole slew of other things that they've been doing. Killing the game. So hats off to Capcom. Sumo Group's founders are leaving the UK studio. CEO Carl Cavers and COO Paul Porter and the firm's Director of Excellence and Integration Darren Mills will depart the company, best known for titles such as Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Team Sonic Racing, and Crackdown 3. COO Gary Dunn and CFO Andy Stewart have now been named as co-CEOs. So I wonder what was the decision behind this. But they've been pushing out some not super big titles, but some pretty decent titles. Say so myself. After reporting some solid financial results, PlayStation admits it may have to increase the price of PS5 in the US depending on what happens regarding tariffs. The company said it has a 3-month stockpile of PS5 units, so it's time to consider its options. So if you're a PC gamer such as myself, and you're opting on whether to get a console or not if you can't wait for GTA 6 next year, because who knows when the PC release of that will be. I would say now is a good time, especially if you're in North America, to pick up a PS5. Xbox already has increased their prices, and my buddy, who's a manager at a Walmart in Texas, was mentioning that Xbox is strategically kind of like being like, "Oh, we're sold out of Xboxes," so then when they do restock, it will restock with the new reflected price. And I went to Best Buy today, and I kind of saw the same thing. I was like, "There's no Xboxes here. A few Series S's, but no Series X's at all." I was like, that can't be just simply based on demand because the numbers prove that the Series X/S isn't the most in-demand console, right? So they're kind of doing some strategic positioning with their consoles, only for I think when they do get restocked, they'll be with the new increased reflective price. So the point is, Xbox, if you're considering that, you might already suffer from the price increase. But PlayStation here might have a 3-month window here. So if you're considering it, the time now is to strike. The average age of gamers in Germany has surpassed 39 years old for the first time, according to a new survey conducted on behalf of German Games Trade Association. Over 37.5 million people play video games in the country, the organization said, the highest number yet, which is pretty much the entire population of Canada. So I thought I'd share that. Another AAA video game has been delayed out of 2025, and I don't know if you guys remember this. This is Skydance's new media's Marvel 1943, The Rise of Hydra. If you guys do not remember this, it was randomly shown last year in this super high quality, insane graphical, technical, kind of trailer, which we saw. Who was it? Wasn't it Black Panther and Captain America and all that? I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. It kind of came, broke the internet, and then was just forgotten about after. But Marvel 1943: The Rise of Hydra is the official title, and this is a game led by veteran Amy Heining. She worked on the Uncharted series and Legacy of Kain, so obviously there's a little bit of hope that the game might actually be decent. The delay is for added polish, the firm said in a statement. So this has been pushed out of 2025, maybe obviously pushed into 2026, but might even be delayed further. We'll see. I think a lot of games, especially the game of this caliber, where there's a lot riding on it, I think, like if this game flops, might be scared of the GTA 6 effect, so we will see what happens. Media giant Fandom has sold its Giant Bomb website to 2 of its key staff, which is great. So I know we talked about this about 2 weeks ago now. So Giant Bomb, 2 of the key staff members have bought it themselves, which include Jeff Bucklar and Jeff Grubb. The team announces independence at a panel, which took place during PAX East. So long live Giant Bomb. That's very fantastic news, and I'm excited to keep hearing and reading the work you guys do. Hopefully this means the Giant Bomb podcast won't be affected too much and I can go back to listening it. So that's fantastic news. Studio 42, a new mobile game developer founded by industry veterans from Belka Games, Snap Inc., and Playtrix, have raised $3.6 million in seed funding. The round was led by Play Ventures, with participation from GEM Capital and Arcadia Gaming Partners. So we will see what Studio 42 produces. I'm not a huge mobile games kind of person. So I don't know if I'm really going to be like, oh, I wonder what Studio 42 does next. But yeah. Going back to some community responses, some of the news I was talking about earlier. A lot of people are saying that the PR release of the Switch 2 is super weird. And then a leak, which was out by Arc Systems. Third-party games can only choose 3 options in terms of physical titles. So they can either choose a code in a box, 2, a game key card, or 3, above $16 costed 64 gigabyte cartridges. It kind of gives a little bit more insight on why third-party people wouldn't want to put their game fully on a physical disc, because it costs them money. Most third-party people are going to look for better margins and will choose the game key card. So it kind of makes sense. What else is here? I remember IGN posting something about the Switch 2 that they're really gonna miss out on not having the reviews of things like Mario Kart and the upgraded Breath of the Wild and etc. So I think the overall consensus, like not making that available to publications and journalists, is just a weird decision. So I just wanted to bring those little comments to light. So there's a little other topic I want to talk about. Somehow it always comes back to Xbox at the end of the day. Is has Microsoft / Xbox Call of Duty Game Pass gamble paid off? So last year Xbox placed Black Ops 6 into Game Pass on the day it was launched. Significant moment for the video game subscriptions. Early results were positive. Microsoft probably declared that Black Ops 6 is the biggest launch in terms of players. According to NPR, once again, 33.7 million people played Call of Duty game during November last year, which is when Black Ops 6 launched. This was a huge 13 million increase on the year before when Modern Warfare 3 launched. Modern Warfare 3 was a disappointing launch for Call of Duty because it felt more like an expansion than a full game. So Black Ops 6 player count was nearly 2.5 million higher than the previous best. But in terms of actual overall revenue, the situation is less clear. In terms of Game Pass subscriptions, there was an obvious jump for Xbox. The firm said the launch of Black Ops 6 was the biggest single day for new Game Pass subscribers. U.S. sales trackers Canada reports that game subscription spending grew 12% in the fourth quarter of last year versus Q4 of 2023. Call of Duty is particularly big in North America, and Game Pass was a clear driver for that jump in revenue. Call of Duty and Game Pass boosted the series on Xbox platforms too. Not looking at console only, not including PC, but 40% of Call of Duty players in November played on Xbox system. Before that, it was only 35%. So, all in all, it was going pretty well. Black Ops 6 entered Game Pass, provided a big boost to players at launch, grew Xbox market share in Call of Duty, and boosted Game Pass revenues, particularly in Canada and US. But then what happened? Would the subscribers remain committed long term? The answer is a bit of yes and no, mixed bag. The Call of Duty franchise saw its users decline after the Black Ops 6 launch more sharply than in recent years. Some of that may have been caused by Game Pass, as subscribers are more likely to try something than put it down if it's not for them. But the reality is that despite a strong start, Call of Duty has struggled to engage players to the degree it has in the past. According to Ampere, in March 2025, Call of Duty had 20.6 million players. While it's still a huge number, it's slightly less than March 2024, which had 20.8, and way less from March 2023, which saw 22.4. So, in other words, the Call of Duty team was not able to capitalize on that record-breaking launch, which is disappointing to the Activision team. Xbox share of Call of Duty players on console went down from 47% in November to just under 37% in March. Just a couple months later, 10% dip. Regardless, though, Xbox share is still bigger than what it was the year before. But yeah, obviously disappointing that they couldn't really hold on to that retention. Looking at the Game Pass particularly, quarter 1 2025 spending on video game subscriptions is up 11% compared to quarter 1 2024. So spending is slightly improved, but we're still noticing a revenue improvement year on year. So did putting Call of Duty into Game Pass pay off for Microsoft? Well, yes and no again. The Call of Duty team was not able to capitalize on a record-breaking launch to go from an all-time high, to go from an all-time high to trending below previous years in terms of monthly players will be disappointing to the Activision team. However, the wider Xbox organization seems to have maintained interest in the Game Pass. And this is kind of some strategic positioning by Microsoft. Because following Black Ops 6, there's a string of strong titles in the service, including Indiana Jones: The Great Circle, Avowed, South of Midnight, Elder Scrolls 6 Oblivion Remastered, Expedition 33. And, Doom just came out, Dark Ages, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake, Outer Worlds, GAL 1 remastered is what I'm calling it, the upcoming months. So I know a couple weeks ago when I softly rebooted the podcast, I mentioned The value proposition of the Xbox Game Pass has been really high recently. This kind of just proves it. But is it still the level of growth Xbox was hoping for? Difficult to know. Um, but Game Pass is simply one way for its audience access to games, is what Microsoft always states. It will not always lead to increased revenue for developers, although it does sometimes. But it does play a crucial role in discovery. And one statistic I love to see is whether those new Game Pass subscribers who came in for Call of Duty went on to play other games. We do get the statistics of them dropping off Call of Duty and etc. But what about them adapting to the other games, other games mentioned above? Because games mentioned above are kind of a string of excellent single player titles, but not quite the multiplayer realm that most of these Call of Duty gamers come into. So I would love to see that statistic, because if Microsoft can encourage Call of Duty players to try different experiences, then that speaks to the server's ability to not just aid discovery, but also help tailor people's gaming habits or encourage people to diversify their gaming habits, which I would think would be super, super cool. But we don't have those numbers. So just something I wanted to touch upon. A few other quick notes again on miscellaneous news I wanted to cover. I keep finding more that I missed out, so I apologize I didn't include these earlier. Apparently, the second trailer of GTA 6 was viewed more than 475 million people. That's what Rockstar told the Hollywood Reporter. A developer said it's the video's biggest video launch of all time, beating the trailer of Deadpool and Wolverine, which delivered 365 million views. So that's kind of fucking insane. Oh yes, I want to talk about EA. EA reported a drop in full year revenue of 1.3% for its financial year. However, it significantly exceeded expectations in the fourth financial quarter, with revenue up 5.8% and income up nearly 40%. The firm saw improved performance for EA Sports FC, growth for its American football titles, which is Madden and NCAA, a spike in revenue associated with The Sims, plus the success of Split Fiction. Split Fiction has sold more than 4 million copies since launch in March. And this was nearly double EA's expectations. So EA was only predicting 2 million for Split Fiction. It sold 4. Again, probably a game of the year contender if you have not played it yet. Something big I really want to talk about is Gears of War, which I touched upon as Gears of War Remastered. So Gears of War Reloaded, a modernized version of the first Gears of War, which was done by Ultimate Edition 10 years ago. So kind of confused. So they're remodernizing it again. It's coming out August 26th across all platforms, including the PS5. So I know we've talked about Xbox's strategy to go third party before, but it's still crazy to see Gears of War, regardless if it's just a remake of a remaster, even though it's just a remaster of a remake of the first game. It's crazy, man. To me, it was just still talking about it's kind of crazy, because if a lot of you don't know, Gears of War 1 was like my very first online game. Like, helped me get into online gaming, Xbox Live, online shooters. So it's always going to hold a really special place in my heart. And to see it on PlayStation is wild, but it's going to be super dope, I think, though. It's going to be releasing on PS5, Xbox consoles, obviously Xbox Game Pass as well, but also Steam, which is like my primary console my primary launcher of choice as a PC player. So getting to see it on Steam, the Game Pass, Xbox's infrastructure, and PS5 all on launch, all with cross progression and cross play. So don't forget that. I think on PlayStation you have to connect it to your Microsoft account though for cross play, cross progression. Well, some people might not, but I think most people will. Most PlayStation players were Xbox 360 players at some point, right? So the point being though, I think the longevity of the game will be a little bit better. I'm always worried about Gears of War, about the fan base kind of just dying out, or the active player base. But since it will be out on PS5, Steam, and Xbox and Game Pass, and it's all cross-play, cross-progression, and it's all simultaneous, I think the game will be fine, and it will survive until whenever they decide to release E-Day. So I'm pretty excited about it, man. Even though, like I said, it's just a remaster of a remake, essentially. Mind me if you hear my typing. I just wanted to pull out the price point. So it's developed by Coalition in partner with Sumo Digital and Disbelief. It's coming out August 26, 2025. for $40 US, which is a fair price. Expect that to be probably around 55 in Canada. But again, we'll be hitting a bunch of platforms at once. I really don't know what's going to make this different than UE. Obviously, there's a few things they're saying. Obviously, 4K resolution, 120 FPS, cross progression, cross play. Kind of all the standout features here. But get immediate post launch downloadable content and no additional cost. Includes the bonus campaign act, all multiplayer modes and maps. Full roster of classic characters and cosmetics unlocked through progression, which is similar to UE. Crossplay across all platforms. You and your friends can squad up no matter where you play. No Microsoft account required. Okay. However, signing into Microsoft account unlocks full cross-platform functionality. It enables cross progression, so your campaign and multiplayer progress carries across devices. Also allows you to send invites and play with friends across platforms like Xbox or PlayStation or Steam to Xbox. Okay. So no Microsoft account required, but it is kind of required if you want to play with your friends and achieve cross progression. Okay. So the new thing, sorry, here we go. 4K resolution, 60 FPS in campaign, 120 FPS multiplayer, HDR, Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, 7.1 3D audio, VRR, 4K assets, remastered textures, enhanced post-processing visual effects, improved shadows and reflections, super resolution with improved anti-aliasing, 0 loading screens during campaign. Faster frame rates, deeper visual fidelity. Every detail has been fine-tuned to bring the original game into present. The clarity, smoothness, and immersion that matches the power of today's hardware. Also, gratitude to our longtime Gears fans. Gears of War Reloaded will be a free upgrade to players who purchase a digital version of GAO Ultimate Edition or GAO UE. So, must have purchased a digital version of GAO UE prior to May 5th, 2025. A code will be delivered. So I did have GAO UE. I had it on the Xbox One though. So I wonder if Microsoft still sends me a code. Probably will to my Xbox account. But I wonder if I can use that on PC. Obviously I don't think they're gonna send me a Steam code, which I would prefer. So I might just buy it just to have it on Steam at that price point. But if they give me a code and I can just use it on the Xbox app on PC, like if it's still PC playable, might just do that. I mean, then you spend no money, right? But yeah, just wanted to touch base on Gears of War Reloaded. How could I completely forget about that? So since we're still on the topic of Gears of War, on this week's Have You Played This, I'm not going to talk about GAO 1 because that could be a whole podcast on its own. Similar to like how I do with Morrowind. Does anyone here play Gears Tactics? So I feel like most people have probably touched the original trilogy, which would be GAO 1, 2, 3, maybe even Judgment. Obviously, I think the fan base dipped a bit with 4 and 5. But has anyone played Gears Tactics? Is it actually a good game? I know a buddy at one point in my life, he played Tactics and he actually said it was pretty fun. It's supposed to be kind of like Gears of War meets XCOM, kind of like how Mario Rabbids is, kind of like Mario meets XCOM as well. So I just was curious if people have played that game and whether or not it's worth checking out. Kind of a very different departure for Gears of War at that time. So I know, obviously Halo had a off-spin kind of series with Halo Wars, but Halo Wars 1 was actually really well received. Kind of like a full-blown strategy game. But this is more of like an XCOM type strategy game, right? So, yeah, I'm curious to see what people thought about it. Sorry, the genres are blanking in my head. Halo Wars is not a turn-based tactics game. That's what Gears of War Tactics was. What holy crap, I'm so sorry. What's the term? RTS, holy shit. So Halo Wars is a RTS game, real-time strategy game, similar in the veins of like a Command and Conquer and Age of Empires and stuff. Where Gears Tactics is a turn-based tactics game more in the veins of XCOM. Released back in 2020, top-down perspective, turn-based tactics. Each character can perform 3 actions, such as taking cover, shooting enemies, or remaining in Overwatch to shoot any moving enemy in their sign of light. So, what people thought? Had a main campaign, had side missions. Oddly enough, it had no multiplayer. The story is set 1 year after Emergence Day. So that's kind of where the timeline is for that. Development was handled by Splash Damage with the help of Coalition. Yeah. Just think it was kind of a random game at that point. Had overall some decent reviews. A great Gears game and a great Tactics game. Game Informer criticized the game's tilted pacing by an excess of repetitive and stale side missions, but also included that it was a solid front in the Gears theater of war. So, yeah, have people played it? Would you guys like to see a sequel? I don't even know if Gears Tactics 2 that wouldn't even going to be a thing. I know some people are mentioning. I'm looking at a Reddit here. Good old Reddit. Surely they could have pumped another game in the series by now with extra enemy units and classes, or take a DLC like Ram Shadow, sorry, or just follow a random squad trying to survive, or Hoffman setting up Anvil Gate. But I guess what's probably happened here is Gears Tactics did nowhere well enough to greenlight a sequel, and then also the studio Splash Jam also got bought up by Tencent. Oh damn. Okay, never mind. GG. So once you get bought up by Tencent, it's kind of game over. Kind of interested to see what Splash Damage has done now. So in addition to Gears Tactics, they helped with Gears UE, Gears 4, and 5 multiplayer specifically. They helped with Return to Castle Wolfenstein multiplayer back in 2002, Doom 3 multiplayer. They helped with some. Oh, they developed Brink. Holy shit, that game flopped. Dead on Arrival. Back in what year was that? 2011. Okay, they did Brink. Yikes. Help with Batman or Arkham Origins multiplayer. So a lot of help with the multiplayer production, it seems here. And then they made Gears Tactics. And Gears Tactics was a solo though. Yeah, with help of Coalition. Wow. Okay, they don't exist. Anyways, that's this week's Have You Played This? I'm just curious to see if people have played it, if it's worth playing. And who knows, I might check it out one day, but the backlog is crazy. So that was this week's Digital Downtime. We talked about more of a lot of things this time around, so just like 2-3 headliners. But yeah, I did want to talk about the Switch 2 console not being released earlier for journalists and publications. GTA 6's delay impacted numbers. Obviously, we talked more in depth about did the Call of Duty Game Pass methodology worked, as to Microsoft's hoping, a wide array of other things, and of course, Gears of War Reloaded, because anytime Gears of War is mentioned, I could probably just talk about it. Probably the whole podcast if needed be. But yeah, I appreciate your guys' time as always. Appreciate the love, the feedback, everything. Again, if you enjoy it, spread the word. I usually tweet it out or post it on Blue Sky whenever a new episode comes out. So it doesn't hurt just press a quick repost or a like. I do appreciate it. And then on the actual podcast itself, just leaving a review wherever you listen to. And then until next week, I'll see you guys later. Thank you.